After 6 grueling matches, we now know the 2 people who will contend for the final of this tournament this year. It will be Dr. Iain Bourne with the black pieces facing Tyson Mordue with the white pieces. This promises to be an epic encounter, and both of these gentlemen will be wanting to win. You can be sure about that. Anyway, before we kick things off, let's go over for a preview of the match with our expert and pundit, Bob Radford. So Bob, Tyson Mordue against Iain Bourne in the Club Championship 2013. What do you think about this match?
Well, it's interesting these two made it to the final. Tyson was always the favourite, I guess, to get there. No Stephen Meek there, it's a bit of a shock, but Tyson won't have it all his way against Iain Bourne, who's a very, very capable player. And if Tyson doesn't put him away with white, with reverse colours, he might find it difficult.
What sort of opening do you think Tyson Mordue will go for with the white pieces?
Oh, I'm sure he will play e4. I think he's always played e4. He won't play anything else for this match.
Do you expect Iain Bourne to play similarly as it did with Stephen Meek, rather defensively, or do you think he will have a go at Tyson Mordue?
I think he will play Sicilian if he gets e4 thrown at him, and I think he will try to attack Tyson down the queenside, which is normal for a Sicilian opening.
And the personality of the 2 players, what they like as people?
Well, they're both very intelligent men. Tyson is quite articulate in everything he does and says, and he has enormous experience at big time games. I don't know much about Iain, but what I haven't played him and met him, he will give a good account of himself. And
finally, out of 100%, what are Bourne's chances of becoming club champion tonight?
I think it's probably 60-40 Tyson, so 40%.
Okay, thanks ever so much, Bob. We'll see you again when you present the trophy later.
Yes, thank you.
The final of the South Bristol Club Championship. I'm playing white against Iain Bourne. It's my first South Bristol Championship, and oddly enough I'm playing somebody who's got a 100% record against me. He beat me in the only game we played about 20 odd years ago in a very long and boring Queen and Pawn ending. But hopefully that won't be arriving today. We're going to start the game with my usual move, 1e4.
So it's the final against Tyson, who must be the favourite here. And he's got the white pieces, and he seems to know how to play all my openings better than I do. So there we are. So he plays e4, as expected. Now I have only got one opening, or one defence here, it's the Sicilian, so I may as well play it, even though I know Tyson enjoys this. Anyway, c5.
Okay, so he's played a Sicilian defence. The question is, which variation? My normal move is to knight f3, so I'm playing it.
Knight f3, as expected. And I reply with knight c6.
He's played 2 knight c6. That could be leading to several things. We could still get a dragon, Skaven engine, or even if Richard Garrett played against me, a Lowenthal. It's a question of whether I want to play my own sort of variation with b3 here, or go into the main lines with d4. I may as well carry on with the main line, d4.
d4, so he's going for the open Sicilian, which I expected. There's only one move here, and it's c takes d4.
He's played c takes d4, so the normal recapture is knight takes d4, and that's what I'm playing.
Knight takes d4, as expected again. And now I had to a pleasant decision to make. Last week, Tyson had shown me how he'd very convincingly won against the accelerated dragon. Unfortunately, that's what I play. Well, I'm going to have to stick with what I know, g6.
He's played g6, which is the accelerated fianchetto, and the way I play that, it normally turns into a main line of a dragon. That is a very ambitious line to play against me. Club members will know I put a game against Krzyżanowski from Congress onto our website recently, and I have an extremely good record with the particular line that I play against the Dragon. So I wonder why he's choosing this line. Anyway, I'm going to play at knight c3.
Knight c3. I was expecting that. The alternative would be c4 if the Maroczy bind, but I didn't expect that from Tyson. So I played bishop g7, hitting the knight on d4.
He's played bishop g7, which is the standard move. He's attacking the knight twice on d4. The sensible way to defend it is to develop it. Bishop to e3.
He defends with bishop e3. The standard line now is just knight f6, so I may as well just play it.
Okay, he's played knight f6. The standard move here is bishop to c4, so that's what I'm playing.
Bishop c4, which is the best move. Often white plays f3, which is a mistake, because after castles and something like queen d2, I've got queen b6, which is very good for black, and otherwise I'm threatened to play d5 in one move. So bishop c4 is the main line. In the game that I saw Tyson play last week, his opponent played queen a5, which is a very trappy variation, but since I know Tyson knows all the traps, I'll play just simply castles.
He's castled here. The other main move is queen a5, which was the Krzyżanowski game. If black plays d6 around here, then it transposes into a mainline dragon. He's got odd ideas here of knight takes e4, knight takes e4 for white, d5. He's got knight g4 in some lines, but a lot of these lines come to nothing if I play bishop b3 in this position, which rules out most of the traps. And frankly, he's probably going to hit it with knight a5 or knight e5 anyway. So bishop b3 is the move to play in this position.
And he plays bishop b3, which again is theory. He more or less has to go and do that, because otherwise I can either take on e4. There's lines where I play knight g4. It's just a sensible move. In the past I've always played a5 here, which is one of the main lines. But I'd seen a game between Anand, the world champion, and Carlsen, which I thought I might try to copy. So I played d6.
Black's played d6. If you want to find out what would have happened against knight a5, I refer you to the annotated game against Krzyżanowski on the website. Anyway, my turn to move as white, and Lucky really is threatening knight g4 now, so I need to prevent it, but f3 is a standard move in the line anyway, so f3.
White plays f3, which he more or less has to play, because otherwise I'm going to play knight g4, messing him about. And now I play bishop d7, which is a theoretical move.
Black's played bishop d7. My normal move here is queen d2. That's what I'm playing.
Queen d2. Now white keeps up the option of casting queenside, which I'd be quite happy with, and also casting kingside. Possibly rook c8 is the main line here, but since I didn't know all the theory about the very sharp lines there, and I decided just to play knight takes d4.
Black's played knight takes d4. I'm happy to see that. A more critical line is to play, say, rook c8 followed by knight e5 and then round to c4. I've still got a particular plan in mind against that, but this is actually even better for white, because white takes firmer control of the centre, and black basically has less tactical tricks. Anyway, my recapture is obvious. Bishop takes d4.
He plays bishop takes d4, which obviously is the standard move. Putting the queen there would be very silly because I just play knight g4 again. Now, one of the this line is interesting because taking it from the accelerated, it's a classical dragon now, but it started off as an accelerated dragon, where white has moved his bishop to b3 earlier than normal, and this takes away his protection of the b5 square, and so the move to play is b5, which is what I'm going to do, b5.
He's played b5, getting early advancing on the queen side. Well, that's very helpful if I actually castle queenside in this position, which is a standard thing for most players in this position to do. However, I've made a career out of castling kingside in against dragons for nearly 30 odd years, and I see absolutely no reason to change now, so castles kingside. The only slight drawback to this is not a chess one, it's a psychological one, because we were looking at my game against Krzyzanowski last week, as he has some ideas of what to do in this position, but frankly, I'm about 30 odd years ahead of him. Castle's kingside.
So he's castled kingside. Now it's going to be more of a kind of a positional affair. I know Tyson likes to place his knight on d5, and after the captures retake with the e pawn and then pile down on the e file on the e7 square. But I have a plan against that, so I'm going to play a5, which is kind of theoretical.
He's played a5. Now that's interesting because obviously he's threatening, sort of, to trap the bishop with a4. I've got two options here. I can play a4 myself, or I can play a3, so if he plays a4, I can drop the bishop back to a2. That's perfectly okay for me. The bishop is still a good piece on a2 because it controls the entire diagonal. It's just simply a choice between which of the two I want to play. If I play a4, he'd probably play b4, I'll play knight d5, we can chop on d5. I'm vaguely worried about the pawn on c2 becoming backward down the open file, and I've actually strengthened his pawns by putting them onto a5 and b4, because the backward pawn is the one on a5 and I can't get at it. Therefore, I'm probably just improving his pawn position if I play a4 now. If I play a3, yes, he does have the option of playing b4. I can chop on b4, we can chop the rooks and he recaptures queen a8. Then I go knight d5, I'm threatening the pawn on e7, I'm threatening the pawn on b4, he can chop the knights. I got the option of playing bishop takes or pawn takes. I will probably play a pawn takes because then I'm directly hitting the pawn on b4 and he's got to defend it, and then I can start playing down the e file as well, which is one of the points on my system. So seems far better, more flexible to play a3. Maybe I can play a4 later on, but right now a3 seems the move to play. So a3.
a3, no, I wasn't expecting that. I thought he might play a4, after which I was going to play b5, knight d5, knight takes d5, e takes d5, and then the very interesting move e5, because then if d takes e6, bishop takes e6, it turns out his c2 square is as weak as my d6 square, and it's kind of even, I reckon. Not quite sure what to do about a3. I don't want to advance either my b pawn or my a pawn, because then either way I'll be left with a weakness. These are kind of hanging pawns now. I haven't got much time to really think here, so I don't really want to move my bishop off d7, because I still have an idea to stop his pressure down the e file with e5. It looks like the d6 square is weak, but actually it can be defended quite easily. I don't know, queen b8, bishop c6. I haven't got much time, so I'll just play bishop c6. It's not very result, but it's So I'm going to play.
He's played bishop c6. That's a standard sort of move again in these lines, but there's lots of little transpositional possibilities and different plans for black to play. My main focus is the d5 square. I could play knight d5 now. I think I might just want to bolster that particular square a little bit more. I'm going to play rook a d1 just to see what he does. Rook a d1.
Rook a d1. Well, one of the ideas about bishop c6 was potentially to threaten moves like d5. I can't really play e5 bishop back and d5 now, I don't think. It's got too much there, and the b5 pawn might end up hanging. So I'm just going to take my queen off the d file, develop it, and see what happens next. So queen c.
He's played queen c7, which again is a standard sort of move in these positions. It isn't such a standard position as I normally get from here because black's advanced his queenside pawns so quickly. I think it's now time for me to play knight d5, particularly as I'm attacking the queen, so we've got to make an instant decision as to what he's actually going to take on d5 with. So knight d5.
Knight d5. Well, I've been expecting this. I had hoped in a slightly different position, but there we are. Well, I've got a choice of which piece I take with, but I think if I take with a knight, then he takes the pawn, and my bishop is kind of like in a bit of, I'm not sure. Maybe I can play bishop d7, bishop f5. I don't know. I'm just going to take bishop takes d5 and see what he does next.
There's no difference to me because my recapture is always going to be e takes d5.
He plays e takes d5, which again I was expecting. One of the ideas in this line for black is that black sometimes has to give up his e pawn, maybe d pawn, as long as he can get some counterplay down on the c2 square. I'm going to play rook ac8. Rook's not really needed on the a file at the moment, so rook ac8.
He's played rook ac8, aiming his major pieces down the open c file. That's fairly sort of standard in this sort of line as well. He's got to bear in mind that he can't move his queen too far, otherwise he leaves his a pawn on prey. On the other hand, I've got to bear in mind he's threatening a4, and when I play bishop a2, he can just take the pawn on c2. So somehow I need to defend that pawn on c2. That gives me a straightforward choice between either c3 or rook f2, defending it laterally. As it stands, I want to put a rook on the second rank because I want to double up on the open e file and target his e pawn. So rook f2 is what I'm going to play.
So rook f2, well, he either had to play that or c3 or rook c1 because I was threatening a4. Rook f2 is a nice move because it defends along the second rank and threatens to double up rooks on presumably the e file. I need to move my knight. It's not nice for a dragon player to give up his fianchetted bishop. With the bishop's off, the knight has got some outposts on e5 and c5, so I may well get some compensation there. So I'm going to play knight d2, knight d7, sorry.
He's played knight d7, which again is standard sort of thing to do in this position, and he's trying to copy the Krzyzanowski game, almost move for move, bearing in mind he's got his queenside pawns further than Krzyzanowski has, because Krzyzanowski went queen a5 and then back to c7 and lost a tempo or so. On the other hand, I'm still perfectly happy with this position because my plan is clear. I've got the open the open e file, which I'm going to double my rooks on. The pawn on d5 clamps down on e6, and he's got the wonderful backup of the bishop on d3. And now his king's prime defender, the dark squared bishop on g7, he's just offered to exchange off. So I'm very happy to take that one. Bishop takes g7.
Bishop takes g7. Well, the only move is king takes g7.
He of course is recaptured with king takes g7. So do I play queen d4 check now, or do I put the rook on e2? Well, this is mainly about keeping the options open. I'm going to put the rook on e2 anyway, so I may as well play it now and keep the queen check in reserve. Rook at e2.
So he plays rook e2, starting to pile up on the pawn on e7. I'm trying to work out whether I need to move my defender up with rook fe8, or I can play an immediate knight e5. Principle here, I think, is just to play the most solid move, unless I'm absolutely sure about it. So I'm going to play rook e8. It probably has to go there anyway at some point. It gives them more space for my king, so rook e8, rook fe8. So I'm going to play rook e8. It probably has to go there anyway at some point. It gives them more space for my king, so rook e8, rook fe8.
He's played rook fe8 to defend the pawn. Well, again, it's about the options playable in this position. And again, I think I'll keep as many open as I can. I want to double rooks on the e-file, so I'm going to go play rook from d1 to e1. And again, I'm threatening that pawn on e7. Rook d1, e1.
Rook de1, so he doubles up. But at the moment, I'm not too concerned about this because my knight can go to e5, which is a tremendous square. It covers the e7 square, and it also allows my queen to defend the e7 pawn laterally. I'm also threatening in some lines to come into c4, and if it pushes the pawn onto f4, and there may even in some lines be some tactics with knight g4 and queen c5. Not at the moment, obviously, because he's got the f2 square covered, but maybe somewhere down the line. So I'm going to play knight e5.
He's played knight e5, which screens the pawn down the e-file. There was plenty of choice. There was knight c5, knight b6, king f8 wasn't any good because of queen h6 check, forcing king g8, and then rook takes e7. But knight e5 is the obvious move. Again, it's a question of what I want to do in this position. Do I want to play queen d4, threatening f4, winning a piece, to which the reply is almost certainly queen c5? Or do I want to play f4 immediately? I play f4 immediately, he's going to play knight c4, then I play queen d4 check, which also defends the pawn on b2 backwards. You can't put the knight in the way this time, so it's either f6 or king g8. It's a big decision either way, because if he plays f6, then his e-pawn is totally backward on an open file with double rooks already bearing down on it. If he goes king g8, then I've got a chance to play f5 fairly straightforwardly afterwards. It's going to depend on positions, but yes, I'm going to play f4, queen d4 check, and see how he replies to queen d4 check. So f4 now.
f4. Well, that's a committal move. It creates some weaknesses in his position, and it's the kind of move which, if black survives, could lead to an advantage for black, but he's obviously got an idea of following this up somehow. So I'm going to play knight c4, attacking his queen and the b2 square.
He's played knight c4, just as Krzyzanowski did. Well, my reply is clear, queen d4 check.
So he plays queen d4 check. Well, clearly king f8 leaves queen h8 mate, so I'm not going to play that. I don't want to play f6 because that creates a huge hole on e6, which these rooks can start infiltrating, and then it's a bit like his game against Krzyzanowski. So I don't want to go down that route, so the simplest move is just king g8.
He's played king g8. Now, if there was a training session at the club, I'd be pointing out the vast difference between all the pieces. I've got a better advanced pawn structure, I've got a centralised queen compared to a slightly passive black one, doubled rooks on an open file bearing down on the backward pawn, rooks in passive positions. The bishop is slightly stifled by the knight, but I can go bishop takes knight if I want. My primary concern here is probably if I start exchanging things, then I might end up with some weak pawns on the queen side. I can certainly consider c3, because then if I play bishop takes knight and he goes queen takes, I can just chop queen safely and take on e7 and I'll be a pawn up in a rook ending. Something I've done many times before in this particular line. But yes, I think c3 is the right move to play. Also gives me options of bishop c2 and trying to play with the bishop on the king side. But options are mainly what I've got here. So c3.
c3. Well, that stops a lot of my play down the c file. Now I've just got to try and think of a plan. Well, one of the ideas I've got is to sort of my queen to b7 attacking the d pawn, maybe even play rook c5 in some lines, but I'll also go rook c7, overprotecting the e7 pawn. I can't see any other particular ideas at the moment, so I'm going to play that anyway. Queen b7.
He's played queen b7, which I think is possibly a small mistake, because he now only has the rook and the pawn defending the knight on c4. But I can play a4 and the knight's position becomes undermined. Then I'm playing down the centre and on the queen side, and he's beginning to get a bit overloaded. If he plays b4, I just take the knight. If he plays b takes a4 again, I can just take the knight. He's got some problems here. He's going to have to wait for the capture on b5, but then that means his queen side is totally hamstrung. So a4 looks like a good move.
a4. Now, I hadn't quite anticipated that, but that does give me some problems, because when he takes on, well, I can't take on a4 because he just captures my knight. When he captures on b5, my knight on c4 is going to be undefended. If I play queen takes b5 defending it, then he can come crashing down on e7. I think the simplest thing is just to defend with rook c7.
He's played rook c7, which is an interesting move because it defends the queen in certain lines. He's still got difficulty moving that knight. I think here that I want to play f5, because with the rook loose on e8, there are certain lines where if he plays his knight back to e5, I can go a takes b5, and if he plays queen takes b5, I have the skewer bishop a4 hitting the rook through the queen on a5, and it's going to be hard put to find a reasonable defence to that. In fact, I'm winning material. So f5 is very strong because it threatens f6.
f5. Well, he's going for it now, and my king's position is a bit drafty, and those rooks and queen managed to do something down there, I'm in big trouble. However, the downside to f5 is it creates a big outpost for my knight on e5, which can't be challenged, well, other than by sacrificing it. So I think it's fairly obvious I've got to play knight e5.
He's played the knight back to e5. The major alternative was queen b6 to get rid of the queens, but then I could have just exchanged on b6 and played a takes b5 with a good extra pawn, and I'm probably winning on the queen side. I can possibly take on g6 first just to avoid him going g6 takes f5, but I've got a good ending regardless. So what am I going to do now? Well, I think first of all we'll just nibble at his king a little bit by taking on g6 before he takes on f5. So f takes g6.
F takes g6. Now, as it happens, I haven't actually had an open dragon my whole life, and now I'm wishing I did, because I'm not sure about how to defend this, but I haven't got any time, so I don't want to. If I play with the f pawn, there's going to be weaknesses all over my position, particularly on the e6, and well, maybe, or knight takes. Well, I've got a feeling that just leaves me undefended. I'm just going to play with h takes g6.
He thought about that for a little while, but I wasn't expecting anything other than what he played, which was h takes g6. So, on the basis that I'm still doing well on the queen side, and probably stay a pawn up there if I want to, I'm going to play a takes b5.
So, the problem I've got here is if I take on b5, he's got bishop a4, but it's quite common in these lines for black to give up a pawn on the queen side and then get some activity with the rooks and then come around the back. Well, I think if I go knight rook c5, I'm threatening moves like a4. Yeah, I quite like rook c5. It's a nice move.
And he's played rook c5. I think he's overlooked something here, but things are getting complicated again, just when we're both being short of time. Now, I'm fairly confident that if I wanted to, I could play c4, and if he then went rook 8, c8, I could play rook takes e5, have a couple of pawns for the exchange and attacking chances. On the other hand, with his rook on c5, his d pawn is now overloaded, so I can go rook takes e5, and because if he goes d takes rook, then I can play queen takes the rook on c5. Now, unfortunately, after rook takes e5, he can throw in the intermediate move, rook takes b5. It gets interesting because I can still play my bishop a4 move, skewering both rooks, and after he plays d takes e5, I've got queen takes e5, and it's still going to come out rather interesting. On the other hand though, if I play rook takes e5, he plays rook takes b5, can I put the rook anywhere else? I'm even looking at rook g5, h5, even though it's on pre on h5, back to e4, to e3, and then swinging it over to the king side. Gosh, there's so many lines here, but I feel this is a critical position. I need to take my time and not rush it. The one thing I'm slightly unhappy about is that after, say, I play rook e3, rook takes bishop, rook e3, although I'm threatening queen h8 mate, he's got queen b6, because that's defended backwards by the rook, and I can't play queen h8 mate. It's a bit of a shame. Okay, well I can go queen h4 instead of rook h3. He's got queen takes d5 in that line. This is going to get complicated. But what else am I going to play other than rook takes e5? This is an opportunity to really open the position up. And if I can get all my major pieces focused on his king, I'm winning because, as usual, the pawn on d5, pawn on d6 just cuts all his major pieces off from the defence of the king side. This is exactly what had happened against Krzyżanowski, so I ought to try it here. Rook takes e5. Oh, he looks a bit disconcerted by that.
Rook takes e5. Well, when I played rook c5, I had overlooked this. I mean, the problem now is my wonderful knight goes off the board. If I take that rook, he simply takes my rook and I'm a piece down. However, there is a smarter way of playing this, and this is play rook takes b5 when he has two pieces on pre. Well, I don't mind this too much. It's
okay, he was clearly surprised by that, and after some thought, he's played rook takes b5. So the pawns are now level. I've currently got an extra piece, which was the bishop on b3, but I got that bishop and my rook on e5 on pre. So it's a choice between bishop a4, which will guarantee getting my material back, or moving the rook some way. I still like this line, rook 5 to e3, rook takes bishop, rook h3, he's got queen takes d5, queen h4, queen h5. Oh, then I've got queen d4, because if he goes queen, yeah, okay, yes, I like this. I'm going to play rook e3.
rook e3. I'm a little bit ahead of time, but there isn't much time, and there is a horrible thing that's going to happen on h8. But I can't just be a piece down, and that would be tantamount to resigning anyway, and there's no alternative, so I've got to play rook takes b3 and hope that I can get the queens off by queen b6 or something.
He's played rook takes b3, which of course is completely forced. So I'm now going to switch my queen across to the king side. His h-pawn is missing, so I should be coming in down the h-file quite readily. So queen h4.
Queen h5. Now, if I had a bit more time, I'd be able to engineer something against this g2 square. But rook h3 is coming, so rook takes b2, rook h3, rook's end of game. How can I defend this? I don't know if I can defend this actually now. It's I've got to do something, so I'm going to play queen takes d5.
He's played queen takes d5, so I can play rook h3. Oh, this is good news. After rook h3, queen h5, I can go back queen d4, because even though he pinned my queen with queen c5, my queen on d4 is supporting h8, so I can play rook h8 mate. Hang on a sec. That means I could have actually played rook h3, queen b6, rook h8 mate 2 moves ago. I didn't have to go in for this line. I've just wasted 2 tempo, but I'm winning anyway. Oh, that's crazy. Rook h3.
Rook h3 looks fatal, but now I can play queen h5. I haven't got any time, so I may as well play it immediately.
He's played queen h5. King g7 would have been absolutely dreadful after queen h6 check. So now I go back to d4, and as I said, if he plays queen h5, my queen is supporting the rook's mate on h8. Okay, he's having a bit of a think about this. Okay, suppose he actually plays queen takes rook, pawn takes, rook takes b2. He's got rooks and 2 pawns for the queen. My queen's in a magnificent position. Rook's doing well too, because it's attacking the pawn in e7. If he really wants to go in for that, I suppose I've got to maintain the attack. I can go h4 and h5. Smash up his king side a bit more. His rooks aren't really coordinated with the defence. Oh, he's saved me a lot of bother. He's resigned.
Tyson Mordue then, champion of South Bristol Chess Club 2013, after an enthralling game with Dr. Iain Bourne. Bourne put up stubborn resistance with his Sicilian, but in the end, Mordue, one of the pre-tournament favourites, came through to win the match and the tournament. Very, very interesting indeed. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed this tournament all the way through, and have enjoyed hearing the thoughts of the players. But thank you very much for joining us, and we hope that you've had a good time with it. Thank you. Bye bye.